Hello, everybody. I hope you're ready to seek some truth because we were talking about conspiracy theories in this episode of Beyond the Borderline with your host, Connor, Cam, Phil, and Ryan.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to episode 19, I think. We're closing in on 20 episodes. So thank you guys for sticking with us so far. It's been a hoot. So today, we're going to have a bit of a fun episode. Taking a bit of a break from serious topics and diving into some conspiracy theories. So conspiracy theories, they've gotten a bit of a bad rap over the past few years. And we're not necessarily endorsing any of these, but they're fun to talk about. They're fun to speculate about because, there's some shady shit that happens and it's fun to just guess sometimes at what might be going on in the world. So we'll go over a range of theories and maybe some of the more famous ones, not necessarily credible, but famous ones or ones that we like, and yeah, just discuss them and see what's what. So Connor, I'll let you kick it off there.
I call it the grocery theory. And essentially how it goes is until you've interacted with someone, they're not really a real like they're not like a NPC, I guess, they're not really real until you interact with them. It's like when you think about it, like think about all the people that you've interacted with, and then think about like when you go outside, like you drive past your neighbors' houses or whatever, and you never really see anybody bringing groceries into their house except for if you've interacted with that person before. If you've interacted with that person before, you might have seen them bring groceries into the house. But if you've never once talked to them or interacted in any capacity, then chances are like you've never really seen them bring groceries into the house, which is like it's a really weird thing to think about. But like when I first heard this, I kind of thought back and I was like, this is so true. Like, I pass like when I drive, you pass like hundreds of houses, and how many of those times like like the last 23 years of my life I've been driving past houses, and I don't think I've ever seen anybody that I didn't know see them bring groceries into the house.
That's like Lars's house.
We never once has seen his windows open
or any signs of
blinds.
Life. No signs of
Nothing.
Life ever.
No light at all.
No, it was definitely, yeah, that's just programmed into the simulation, dude.
There just happens to be what do you call it? What are those like fancy trailers?
Oh, like the
Streamline or something?
Yeah. Like the silver ones?
Where you would have like monster hunting equipment and shit. Just like
we're just outing Lars to the world. Lars is a great person. Lars, if you're listening to this, hope you're doing well, man. But yeah, Connor, I've heard of this before. It was kind of put to me in a slightly different way, where it was basically the thought experiment is like you don't have any concrete proof that anyone actually exists until you interact with them. Well, even if you interact with them, you have to interact with them like physically, you'd have to like cut them open to see if they bleed, which is fucked up. It's a little morbid, but the point is, like, anyone walking down the street, like, you don't actually know 100%, like beyond a shadow of a doubt that those people actually exist, and they're not just part of a simulation.
It could be like a bot or something, like, something that's not like, not human, that's just walking around.
Because unless you're like omniscient and omnipresent and can see all things, at all times to verify that everyone is actually a real person, you don't really know. It could just be incredible programming, which is a terrifying thought. And I hope that's not true, but.
Which means to the people that are listening that we could just be robots feeding you guys.
We could be the AI that we talked about last episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Damn. Are we going to take over the world, boys?
I hope so. No, I'm just kidding.
That was my childhood dream, which is why I can't be trusted with power.
Supreme ruler Cam.
Yeah. No.
Is that theory about like, Connor, you call it the grocery theory, but there's a phenomenon, I think, and I think this is somewhat based in fact, where a really young infant is only able to conceptualize what's happening right in front of them, and then as soon as you leave the corner, poof, gone. You don't exist. Like, is that kind of like,
Right.
is that kind of like, I know it's a little more um like sinister, your approach, where like you are technically conscious in your realm, but then everything else is kind of this made up world. I don't know.
Hmm. It's a good like
Yeah, like
analogy.
how it's kind of like thought of, I guess, is like, like this is just like the easiest thing to think of is like, have you ever seen other people that you don't know bring groceries to the house? It's like, you don't really see other people that you don't interact with doing like doing basic like life things that you do, like,
Daily, like everyday routine things. Yeah.
yeah.
Although you do see people like jogging, like exercising outside and stuff. Although they could just be, yeah, NPCs.
Yeah, but where are they jogging to? Like, where are they just,
I don't know. Let me get on my drone and just stalk them down the
I don't
street.
know if it's just me, but I've seen an increasing amount of people walking their dog, like tenfold.
Really?
well,
I don't
I
understand
think
why. I
Probably
don't know
because
that's a
why.
new
COVID.
thing. It's COVID dogs, man. That's a real thing. Is like people got dogs in COVID,
Yeah.
and now these dogs are like permanently attached to these people. So when people have to go back into the office, what's gonna happen to these dogs? That's a whole other thing that we can talk about
These
another
people,
time.
and they're probably not gonna have kids now either. They've got their fur babies.
Oh boy. Well, it's kind of like when the birds are going south, so to speak.
Yeah.
Are they charging?
Oh, the birds don't exist. That's pure satire. Eh? The guys that invented that theory,
I
that
know.
birds are like government drones. I think
That's great.
their point was to be satirical about the fact that Gen Z like will believe anything.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, that's so funny. I saw a video actually the other day that this guy's like, oh, they try to like, I think somewhere in LA, like a street in LA was shut down. They're like, they try to shut down the birds don't exist protest. Well, and then they went outside like they went outside like the CNN building in LA, and they're like, well, we went right to the front lines. We're in front of CNN. We're here to protest what really matters.
Oh my
Birds don't exist.
god.
Birds aren't real.
How is that the
It's so
hill?
funny.
Why is that the hill that you die on? Like of all the causes you could choose to fight for,
Dude, these guys like do it so jokingly, but I feel like some people might actually
Some
believe them. And
people, oh
they're
yeah.
just they're making like a mockery of this, and it's so funny. But
Funny thing is, everyone there probably has cell phones and is like using social media. It's like, dude, the government doesn't need a bird drone to spy on you. Like they're doing it right now.
they
But
have
anyway,
everything they need. Yeah.
okay, I want to go into. I had a couple conspiracy theories. These are actually like lesser known, I guess. Um, but they're some of my favorites. Um, the main one being what I don't know. There's not like an official name for it, but I call it the Titanic switch theory. I don't know if I might have explained this to you, Phil, before. But basically the theory goes that the Titanic, so background, I used to be obsessed with the Titanic for some apparent reason, like biggest ship ever at the time, right? Like you're a kid and you're like, shit, that's awesome. So
As one
yeah,
does.
yeah, as one does. So I was obsessed with the Titanic. So, and then when I was, 15, 16, I became obsessed with conspiracy theories. So, these two interests just naturally overlapped. Um, so anyway, the theory is basically that the Titanic sinking uh, was planned, and it was basically a massive like insurance fraud scam. So basically it goes that like the Titanic had a sister ship, like a twin ship called the Olympic, both built and owned by the same company. But the Titanic was bigger. There were some differences, between the design and general layout of the two ships, but they were said to be sister ships. I think there
Weren't
was a
they
third
almost
one.
identical? Weren't they almost identical, like on the outside though? It's just one, like
Yeah.
the Titanic was bigger and had like an extra stack, but other than that, they look like identical,
Yeah,
essentially.
they had the same amount of smokestacks. They just had different numbers of certain things, which comes into the conspiracy later. But basically, um, basically the theory goes that so the Olympic was sailing in 1911. The Titanic launched in 1912, but the Olympic was sailing in 1911, and it collided with another ship, a British military ship, and suffered like pretty substantial damage. And White Star Line, the company that owns Titanic and Olympic, were found to be liable for the collision. And so they were going to have to pay for the damages for both ships and the legal fees associated, blah, blah, blah. So they were out a shitload of money. So basically the Olympic was in a very brief period of time starting to look like a real, like, what's the opposite of a cash cow? You know, like just dragging them down, like not worth
Just a money
keeping
pit.
around. Yeah, exactly. So basically, the Titanic was finished at around the same time as this whole thing is happening, right? Early 1912. And there was this period of time where the Olympic and the Titanic allegedly were both in like dry docks together because they had to like switch the propellers from one to the other because one of the propellers got damaged on the Olympic as well. But basically the theory is the Titanic never actually left. Was it Southampton? Never left England. And they really sent out the Olympic instead. And when they were both in the dry docks together, they just switched the names on the ships essentially and switched the propellers allegedly because one broke, but really because they had like the serial numbers or whatever. Anyway, and then sent out the Olympic on the quote unquote Titanic's maiden voyage, and then deliberately crashed it into an iceberg and sank it to get the insurance claim on that, so that they could pay back their fees for the Olympic being damaged, basically. Like, do you get what I'm saying?
Damn.
Yeah, like
Which
makes,
is-
it makes sense. And it's not very hard, like the ships at the time especially, it's not that hard to paint over the name like the Titanic and switch it, like to switch it from the Titanic to the Olympic and vice versa.
Now, like,
So
I'm
it
not saying
makes-
it's true. I'm not saying it's true, but I used to be fascinated with this theory because I was
I've heard
like,
this too. And it's not like it's not that far fetched, especially at the time. Like it'd be really hard to prove it at the time as well. Like there's not a lot of evidence like what you have today.
mhm.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the evidence is lost as well.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily like that they planned for all those people to die. Like maybe shit just went wrong, you know, and like they had planned for a ship to like be around to rescue it, but it didn't actually like work. Like there was a ship near the Titanic, right, when it was going down, the Californian or whatever, I think it was called. And they were sending off the flares to like try to say, hey, we're sinking. But they thought it was fireworks. So they're like, haha, yeah, fuck you, bud. So people are like, oh, it could have been that could have been the ship meant to like save them, but they just didn't realize they were calling for help or whatever. Anyway, there's not a ton of evidence for it, but it's definitely possible, you know, like insurance fraud happens all the time, right? And after the sinking of the Titanic, White Star Line, like the company that owned it, received €1 million of insurance money, and in 1912, so that's 89 million euros today.
Didn't they also
sorry,
take out one of the
pounds.
biggest? Didn't they also like take out one of the biggest insurance not claims, but like yeah, didn't they like purchase like the most expensive insurance they could on the boat right before it set off as well? Which I mean
Yeah, I'm
kind
not
of
sure
makes
about
sense.
that.
Like you want to protect your assets, but
Mhm.
if you're like it's like if people are saying like, oh, maybe they already knew it was gonna sink,
Mhm.
that like it kind of looks a little bit sus, but not make sense. But you're saying something else about like the numbers of things didn't
Yeah,
equate on the Titanic to the Olympic. Do you want to go into a little bit more depth about that as well?
yeah. So it's all laid out on this Reddit thread where the theory basically was crafted. But
Because
the
Reddit's
guy,
super credible.
what's that?
I said because Reddit is always right.
Well, no, remember, we're not endorsing any of these theories. They're just cool.
Yeah.
But no, as evidence, he shows a bunch of photos. And so he's basically saying, okay, this is the evidence. So So the Titanic, so basically he points to photos of the Olympic and the Titanic in dry docks and says like, okay, look at the porthole design on the back or on the sides and shit, and be like, okay, look here on the Titanic, there's 5 portholes and they're evenly spaced apart on the hull of the ship. And then here on the Olympic, they're clustered, 2 of them close together, and then the 3 others are set apart. So it's like things like that, where it's like there are a couple notable differences if you really like look at the designs between the 2 ships. And then he shows a picture of the Olympic in harbor after the sinking of the Titanic. And the porthole design seems to match what the Titanic was. So he says, look, this is proof that this is taken after April 1912. The porthole design is the exact same as the Titanic picture taken before it allegedly sank, which means that they actually did send out the Olympic. So anyway, just shit like that. But basically the main premise is they were out a fuck ton of money. They had 2 ships basically identical. One was fucking half wrecked and the other one was brand spanking new. And then one of them spawned the brand spanking new one, allegedly on its maiden voyage, hit an iceberg and sank. But the theory is no. To get our money back and to keep our brand spanking new ship, we just swapped the names, sent it out, and boom, there you go.
Yeah, usually 2 big accidents like that is enough to make a company
Yeah, it would have been pretty
like
bad for them.
fall apart. But yeah, no, I understand that. I guess two sides of the coin here is like one of them you can kind of change how things are perceived by the camera angles as well.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
maybe those portholes were different, and then the other thing was like there's like someone's got to measure them and say like, yeah, this is how long the Olympian
Yeah,
is, yeah, this is how long, and
it's
like
just hard because the Titanic is so far underwater and so broken, and there's so much shit growth that's
yeah,
on it now, and
and
it's
I
so
guess
hard to like investigate it.
before it sank too, I'm sure nobody was really thinking like, oh, let's make sure that this one's actually the Titanic and not the Olympian. Like people probably didn't really think about that at the time.
Oh, okay. So we can transition away from this because, yeah, I just wanted to outline it because I thought it was interesting. Like I'm obsessed with the Titanic. Sorry, but anyway, before we leave the Titanic topic, in related to it, there's this. It's kind of creepy. So the Titanic sank in 1912, right?
Oh yes, the book.
Yeah, the book. So this
The
motherfucker,
book.
this dude in 1898, I believe, wrote a book called, what is it called?
Was it the Titanica?
No. Oh, the
The
wreck of
Titan.
the Titan. So the book's called The Wreck of the Titan, or Futility. And it basically tells the story of a mega ship, the biggest ship ever built by mankind, called the Titan. Pretty damn close to Titanic. And it sets off for its maiden voyage from England, crossing the Atlantic, and then off the coast of Newfoundland, hits an iceberg, and everyone on board dies. And yeah, yeah, and even the speed of the ships was like off by like 2 knots or something like that, which I don't know if there was like a generic ship speed that people did, but anyway, it's creepy.
Simpson level future prediction, man. That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's like some Simpsons level prediction.
yeah. Let me find. Oh yeah, struck an iceberg on its starboard side while moving at 25 knots, 400 nautical miles from Newfoundland. And due to an insufficient amount of lifeboats, most people died. So it's literally the exact story of the Titanic, but in a book 14 years before it happened. And the ship's called the Titan. Like,
yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's a little sus. That's a little sus.
Like, yeah, he described it as unsinkable and among the greatest works of men. Like, that's literally, the Titanic was the unsinkable ship. What other similarities? The length of the Titan was 800 feet. The Titanic was 882. The Titanic and the Titan Both had a 3,000 person capacity. The Titan held 2,500 people. The Titanic held 2,200. Both ships were British owned. Both ships hit their starboard bow around midnight. Both sank in the North Atlantic Ocean at 400 miles from Newfoundland. Both had a lack of lifeboats. Both had triple screw propellers. Anyway, yeah, it's creepy.
Wild.
But anyway, enough about the Titanic. Anyone want to bring up another one? Connor,
I don't know.
a certain presidential figure, perhaps.
Sorry about that. I was gonna call you. Sorry, what'd you say?
I was like, no, I was just saying if we want to bring up another one. I know we wanted to maybe talk about JFK. So
Oh yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah, so this is another theory that I kind of find interesting. I don't know if I agree with it, but it's definitely a little fishy. It was just that like JFK was assassinated by the CIA.
Right.
I don't know if he was assassinated by the CIA necessarily, but he was definitely it was definitely high, like super high powerful people that wanted him dead. I think a lot of people can agree that he was one of the most like honest and progressive leaders that the United States has had. He didn't really care for hiding stuff. He kind of shot from the hip, told things as they were, and truly wanted to help everyone out. That's why he was so popular. But then at the end of the day, those powerful people were like, the people are giving all the power to him because he's honest.
Right.
And then yeah, they silenced him. And again, I don't know if I agree that it was a CIA or just powerful
But
people.
powerful
But
interest. Yeah. Well, I guess the most suspicious thing is the fact that the gunman, what was it? Lee Harvey? No, Lee Harvey Oswald. Was that Abraham Lincoln's assassin?
they
Or
both
no,
have the
it
same
was Lee Harvey Oswald. Yeah. John Wilkes Booth was Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah.
Because he was killed, what, 2 days later or 3 days later?
In
Yeah.
custody.
Yeah. Like that is pretty sketchy. That's like, that was the 1960s
Weren't-
version of Epstein.
Their only lead.
Weren't the classified documents surrounding that whole incident released recently, or aren't they planning?
No,
to be?
they're still
No, they're
they're
not.
still sealed because they
Okay.
have some resemblance to what's currently happening now in the geopolitical realm, which is sketchy.
Yeah.
Like, what do you
well,
mean? We're in
well,
a totally
there's a
different
couple of
culture.
theories like about the reasoning why, like one being the whole Bay of Pigs debacle with Cuba, that it may have gone against the interests of like the quote unquote deep state, um, or I don't know. There's not really much evidence. Just the fact that John F. Kennedy was like you said, like a new kind of president in a way. I guess there was one thing. One of the more deeper theories on Kennedy's assassination was that he signed an executive order, like very shortly before he was killed. I forget what it's called. Well, I think it's Executive Order 11110 if you Google that. But anyway, it was something to do with taking the power of like taking some power away from the Federal Reserve in relation to like monetizing silver or something. And then people are like, oh, it was the Federal Reserve trying to kill him, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, in reality, it may have just been someone who was pissed, or I don't know what what's the public story? Like it was a communist.
I thought he was also trying to like a lot of the stuff that the government keeps classified from the people. He was trying to declassify and make it so like everything was going to be public record.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that's true though, because like
Yeah.
his presidency has become such a myth. Like he's become such a mythical figure because he died so young, and he was attractive and he was popular, and he was the only president to be assassinated since Lincoln, and so myths get built up around figures like that, and which is why people often rank him as one of the best presidents, even though he only served for 3 years, right? So I don't know. There's a lot of shit around him. But it certainly is odd. And also, like, if you're the security detail, like, why are you riding around in an open top convertible with the president of the United States. Like, and how did you not clear those buildings? I mean, how did
Yeah.
Lee Harvey Oswald get up there with a gun? Like, if there is no conspiracies involved, then that's just a catastrophic failure of the Secret Service to protect the president. I mean,
1000%.
truly catastrophic. And it hasn't happened since. Like, I mean, I guess it set a precedent, but
Yeah. Wasn't there like a secondary conspiracy about that like weird babushka lady?
oh, the babushka lady on the grassy knoll. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
just
Umbrella
some, like,
Academy kind of
hooded
goes into
figure.
that. Yeah, just some
Just
lady.
some like just randomly appearing in all of the photos.
Yeah, with like did she have like an umbrella or something?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
am I thinking of? Or but she looked like a babushka, like
yeah.
the Russian, like a
Like
Russian
a
grandma.
Russian grandma.
Yeah.
What she's just in all the pictures.
Just
Yeah, and
strangers.
just standing on this like grassy like hill, like nobody around her or something. Like I'm gonna Google it right now. I want to see if let's see babush. How do you spell
It was-
babushka?
No idea.
BABUSHKAH,
Okay,
I think. Babushka.
babushka lady JFK.
All
Yeah,
right.
she's
Why don't we step into Phil or Ryan? Why don't you guys shoot one out?
apparently the FBI were searching for her but could never find her. She's probably a time
Oh.
traveler.
That's the most plausible theory.
Yeah.
I just want to go a little bit, and then Ryan can take it away toward the end of the episode. Obviously, we all know that Epstein is just a crazy
I
person.
love this already.
Now we already know that he had some criminal enterprise at his private island. I forget where.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about more so kind of like behind the scenes and what he was planning to do on that island. And I think, or what people speculate, is that he has somehow created this intricate web of blackmailing the elite.
Right.
And like some people think it's like Israeli intelligence that's like setting it up or something. Because like he had
Oh, you mean like he's like
he
a
had ties
double
with
agent
Mossad or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
that was trying to lure the
The
elite?
elite. I think so.
Oh, like a trap. Okay. I
Yeah.
never heard that at all. That's an interesting
Mhm.
take. I mean, it's more
I don't
likely
know,
that
I don't have much to
depraved,
say about it.
yeah, he's probably just a
Well,
depraved
I
elite.
also heard a
But-
conspiracy
I know.
theory that Jeffrey Epstein's genitalia is being housed on that island in like a cryogenic tube.
Why? Why would that
What?
be true?
That doesn't even make sense.
Like-
Unless-
Conspiracies aside, we all know that he was up to some crazy shit. And even
Oh, that's a fucked up. rather than
people like to
crazy,
rave
but-
about Bill Gates. Like, but he took a few too many trips there, and that's why his
Yeah.
wife's no longer with him.
And Bill Clinton. It's strange that well, just I mean, look, it became the biggest meme on earth, but obviously his death is really, really weird. Like,
Convenient.
I mean, how can you let someone do that? Hang themselves? Like, wasn't he supposed to be in
he was on suicide watch.
right, exactly. And then the video footage is gone, the camera's malfunctioned. It's like,
And dude,
look, it's
did you
believable, but
see-
it's barely believable.
Did you
Yeah.
see his
It's
cellmate?
highly-
But he
it's
was like
highly
7 feet,
implausible.
400 pounds.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
It's highly implausible.
It's like, oh, the guards fell asleep. Like, what?
Oh, the camera suddenly stopped working.
Yeah, this is
Get
like the
off
most
it.
high profile prisoner in the United States, and he manages to kill himself with no record, no
Get
footage,
off it.
nothing.
There's so many. Here's the other thing. There's so many movies before this happened about similar situations where they cut the cameras off and
Mhm.
they fake someone's suicide this exact way. Like,
Yeah. Although
That's the
then
other
you
thing
could
that's like-
also say though that pop culture kind of image that we have in our minds like affects the way we think about it, like we think it's more like movie-ish than it really seems, like we think life is more like cool than it actually is.
but how improbable is it?
Yeah, no,
that,
I know. Yeah, I
that
know.
you're, like, I understand. Yeah, maybe we're like pumping it up, but at the same time, like it just to me that just doesn't make sense. Like the chances of that happening are
Mhm.
so low that
Yeah, like if I was guarding him, this extremely high profile prisoner who could take down like a whole ring of elite sex offenders, and he's on suicide watch, I would, if I had any pride in my job at all, I would make damn sure that I was watching what this guy was doing and that the cameras in my freaking prison worked, like,
yeah. But here's the other thing:
and had
if it's all these
backups.
super,
yeah.
if it's all these super elites, like if it's not just one other super elite, it's like a whole ring of them, as you say. Like think about the money and the influence that these people have over other people.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the claim, right? Yeah.
That's the whole thing. But yeah. Anyways, we'll let Ryan go on about the last one here before we end the episode.
I'll get through kind of quick here because we're almost out of time. Cam actually kind of pointed me towards this, and I started doing a bit of research on it. There are a lot of conspiracy theories that surround the Denver International and Airport, like the Denver, Colorado airport. There's quite a few, so I think I'll just go through the four main ones that I think are kind of cool. Firstly, I've been to Colorado quite a few times because I used to go skiing a lot in Colorado, so I've been to the airport. But it wasn't until now, looking back on the stuff that I've researched, that I'm like, oh yeah, I did see that. And, oh yeah, that was there. So the first main like conspiracy theory is about the Denver airport. Is there's this big blue horse statue, right? This horse statue is about 35 feet tall, and it has these glowing red demonic looking eyes. And it is said that this horse is an omen of the four horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yeah, from Revelation.
And they were able to get to this theory, if I'm remembering this correctly, is the person who designed and created that horse had some sort of ties to Satanism. But it was recently debunked, saying that no, the reason that he made the horse's eyes red was because it was an homage to his father, and his father was big into like neon light signs. It's kind of a weak explanation, but yeah, that's apparently the going explanation for that.
It's weird. Like, it's not a piece of art that I would like put at an airport. Like, it's very odd.
But what about the Denver Broncos, right?
It's really weird.
Yeah,
the Denver
Broncos. Yeah.
are like blue and red, or blue and orange are their colors, so maybe the eyes are supposed to be more orange than red.
No, Connor, they're
Yeah.
like blood red. I've seen them.
Yeah, they're
But
demonic. Maybe it was intended that way.
Maybe it's meant to be orange, but then the color just came off. I don't know. I've never been there, so I can't speak to it. But
So
Yeah.
the next big kind of conspiracy surrounding the airport is a lot of the murals and designs that are inside the airport. A lot of the murals inside depict Nazi-like figures oppressing different minorities, and there's like a lot of them in the airport. So it really lends to the idea that the airport was made and is run by a bunch of anti-Semite, neo-Nazi, underground, crazy people, for lack of a better word. And what supports this conspiracy theory more is the way that the track for the planes, the way that it's laid
The
out,
runways.
the runways, the way that they're laid out. If you look at them from a bird's eye view, they're laid out in the form of a swastika. So a lot of people, it seems, because there's so many Nazi depictions in the airport, that it's like a nest egg for anti-Semites.
Well, isn't the theory that like underground, like it's like a headquarters for like that
leads me
Nazi
into
like
part of
Illuminati?
There's a series of tunnels underneath the airport that go for miles and are long, because the entire airport is like 52 square miles, right? It's the biggest airport that the United States has. And there's these series of these tunnels underground that have been tunneled out, and there's these weird ancient carvings and swastika symbols, and there's a bunch of conspiracy theories that go around that it's a bunch of reptilian lizard anti-Semite aliens.
They just checked all the boxes there.
No, but it's really fucked, because I've seen some of the pictures down in the tunnels, and some of the symbols. Yeah, definitely. There's some people that have obviously managed to get down there and spray paint more symbols to inspire more fear. But some of the stuff that's been carved in there and like actually like chiseled into the walls, it's pretty creepy. If you go look at it, like you can find it on Google. Like they're really terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of fucked up. Welcome to Denver. You might,
Yeah.
you make a
No, it's
capture.
crazy because I used to go to Denver all the time, and I never really gave it any thought looking at those murals and stuff like that. But now that I've done the research, I'm like, oh my god, yeah, that shit is all there. Why is that there?
It is strange. It is strange for sure. It like not necessarily nefarious, but weird. Yeah. Like the horse, it's like just Google Denver airport horse and look at the photos, and it's just creepy. Like it's
Well, it
just
gets,
distasteful. Like conspiracies aside, like what is it doing there?
It gets into the whole idea of maybe it's being controlled by the Freemasons and stuff like that, but that's
Yeah.
that's where a lot of the evidence starts to get thin.
Yeah. Well, I think so we have about a minute and a half left. So we'll probably pick it up with that actually. Freemasons, New World Order, Illuminati, the generic one world government type conspiracies. Again, we're not supporting any of these necessarily, but it's fun to talk about them once in a while, just to get the juices flowing. And everyone likes a good story once in a while, a good tall tale. So yeah, I think we'll go into that next episode. And yeah.
There you go. All right, everyone. Make sure to follow us on socials, like, comment, share, listen up next week. I guess Friday. Sorry, we got another episode coming out. Remember to take care, brush your hair,